In the video you're about to watch, you're going to see the editor of the Wall Street Journal lay out the case for why he doesn't think media outlets should label any of Donald Trump's statements as lies. And then I'm going to disagree with him.
Do you feel comfortable saying so-and-so lied? To be that, if somebody says just an outright falsehood, do you say the word lie? Is that important to start putting in reporting or not?
You know, I'd be careful about using the word lie. Lie implies much more than just saying something that's false. It implies a deliberate intent to mislead. I think it's then up to the reader to make up their own mind, to say, this is what Donald Trump says, this is what a reliable, trustworthy news organization reports, and you know what? I don't think that's true. I think if you start ascribing a moral intent, as it were, to someone by saying that they've lied, I think you run the risk that you look like you're not being objective.
Let me start off by saying that on some level, perhaps a more idealistic level, a level that existed before Donald Trump was part of our political environment, I understand what the guy kind of wants, the idea that's driving his philosophy. But it feels so incredibly out of place with the world that we now live in, after the experience of seeing Donald Trump campaign for a year and a half, seeing what effect it had that the media wasn't willing to call out his statements as lies, call out his past behaviors as crimes, the goodwill that was given by the media that wasn't deserved by Donald Trump and wasn't acknowledged by his supporters. We know where that got us. And so this idea that we can simply treat him the way politicians have sort of to some extent deserved to be treated in the past and to some extent undeserved, I don't think that works. And I think he's gotten so far with the soft glove treatment that he's gotten from the media. Can you imagine if he's allowed to rule as president with a Supreme Court stocked with conservatives, with a Senate and a House stocked with crony Republicans who are going to give him what he wants? Do you know what it's going to be like if the people are not educated as to the effects of his policies, his goals in his policies? In 3 years, when we have to launch some sort of run against him, if people aren't educated as to what he's been doing, what possible chance will there be if he again just receives billions of dollars in free media attention? And they simply say, well, he says this thing happened, and, you know, people can decide for themselves if it's true or not. His exact word was, I think it's then up to the reader to make up their own mind to say, this is what Donald Trump says, this is what a reliable, trustworthy news organization reports, and you know what, I don't think that's true. Man, I wish that it was as simple as that. I wish that people had the time to simply take in all of the information, and then watch all of the reporting, perhaps do their own research too. Now, some people are going to do that. I like to think that a very large percentage of the people watching this video are going to do that, but the vast majority of people simply can't. That's not the way that our lives are structured. And those media outlets, if they're to be worth anything, they need to be able to look at a fact and say, is this fact true? We're not talking about opinions. We're not talking about vague philosophies. We're talking about if he says a thing happened, if it didn't happen, and you can't say that, you can't say that he's lying, then what fucking worth are you or your outlet? What is the purpose of it continuing if you can't look at the relationship between a fact and the real world and say how close they are to each other? It's really that simple. It's not disrespectful to call something a lie if it is. Now, I understand he thinks that there's this big distinction between something being inaccurate and something being a lie. And in a lot of cases, I think that there could be. Now, he says, I'd be careful about using the word lie. Lie implies much more than just saying something that's false. It implies a deliberate intent to mislead. And that's true. And in the media, we shouldn't simply call everything a lie, especially if someone is new to the scene and it's not immediately clear how they intend to influence people. You know, what attachment do they have to the truth? This is not new with Donald Trump, and we understand exactly what his intent is. He lies routinely. When he's corrected, he continues to say that lie. He laughs off the corrections, regardless of how much research went into it. After doing that for months, for over a year, we now can call you a liar because your intent clearly is to mislead. There are certainly some topics that he simply doesn't know the truth and doesn't care to know. He retweets bullshit conspiracy theories without caring whether or not they're accurate. Fine, you can simply say that his intent isn't to mislead, although I would say it's the truth equivalent of manslaughter. He doesn't care whether it's true or not, which I would say is an intent to deceive, but very often he says things knowing they're not true, knowing that they have already been debunked, knowing that the true information is already out there. When we reach that point, he's a goddamn liar, and what he's saying are fucking lies. And look, if the Wall Street Journal is not willing to call them lies, I think we will see what effect that has over the course of the next few years. I think it'll be a continuation of the trend we've already seen, where people say, this media outlet isn't willing to call it like it is, but maybe there are people online who are. And I intend to be one of those people.